Edward Korstein was violently beaten in D.C. Elon Musk says Korstein, also known by a colorful nickname, was, quote, beaten to the point of concussion while trying to save a woman from a D.C. assault.
How about outrage over someone being gang beaten in our nation's capital because of the policies from the people who you support as representatives? How about that? How about outrage over that? What kind of a country do we want to be for the next decade, the next half a century, the next century? Right? Okay, what brought us here? Why are we seeing an improved scenario for Americans right now, economically, as far as national security? Right? There's a different tone in the country. There's a shift. Mm-hmm. So let's take inventory. All right, what do we want to do? What should we set as the baseline? A good rule of thumb is do the opposite of what the left has done when they are in power. Don't ask yourself, what does the left do? What do Democrats do on the national stage? Ask yourself, what would they do with unfettered power? Now, you can look to Canada and see that. You can look to certain parts of Europe, or you can look to these sort of petri dishes, these microcosms, these cities that have been run by progressive leftists for a very, very long time, and you get a good idea. So that's going to bring us here to D.C. Let me just set this up for you, because Donald Trump is talking about federalizing, right, the security issues there in D.C. D.C., why do we find ourselves here? Does this apply to the country? Soft on crime policies, okay? You see this in all kinds of cities, not just D.C., but San Francisco, New York, Detroit, places like St. Louis. And you see the results as far as skyrocketing crime, not in a vacuum compared to the rest of the country. It's much worse in these cities as the direct result of their policies. It's time for D.C., capital of crime. And you know, this does matter, and I get it, D.C. is complicated. We'll sort of get into why we can federalize it, because I don't even know what you consider it the United States. It's one of those type of things. But it's been getting bad for a long period of time. And it's look, it's where capital is. It's where presidents lives. Yeah. We should be putting our best foot forward. And I don't think it's out of line for someone like the president of the United States to look out his window and say, you know what, we should probably clean this place up. Especially when you understand this is the direct result of proactive policy from the left. So this is now making the rounds everywhere. Someone was brutally beaten in D.C. Actually, someone trying to be a hero stepped in the middle of a carjacking and then was gang beaten. Take a guess on the suspects. And the person who ended up being gang beaten, now it's emerged, it was Doge's infamous Big Balls. Remember him?
Just in confirming President Trump's claim that a former Doge employee was attacked on the streets of D.C. last night. Multiple sources telling Fox News that Edward Korstein was violently beaten in D.C. Elon Musk says Korstein, also known by a colorful nickname, was, quote, beaten to the point of concussion while trying to save a woman from a D.C. assault.
First off, hats off to him.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the fact that they just address this like, this happened and he was beaten. Okay, who are the suspects? Why no information on that? Take a guess. Comment below. When you don't get any information on the suspects, whether it's a shooter, whether it's a gang beating, do you make an assumption?
Russian nationals.
Yeah, it's probably those
Ruskies.
Mennonites. Time magazine, this is how they described that incident. They said, the large testicles nicknamed 19-year-old who reportedly used to provide, quote, tech support to a cybercrime ring became a special employee of the Social Security Administration in May. How about, you guys are outraged over everything. You're outraged over pronouns. You're outraged over border security. You're outraged over people exercising their freedom of speech. How about outrage over someone being gang beaten in our nation's capital because of the policies from the people who you support as representatives? How about that? How about outrage over that? Not just, well, Doge. Also, in a twist, turns out the carjacker, the attacker, also had big balls, as seen by the recently released footage of suspect. He should have been on a watch list or something.
Yeah.
We should have seen.
I guess we know who he was now. I like how they thought big balls was.
Gerald had one in the chamber.
I did.
Let it go.
I self-censored.
They censored themselves. They didn't want to say big balls, so they said large testicles.
Yeah.
Which is worse. That's.
Yeah. Sounds like a medical condition.
Yeah, I'm thinking about balls.
Yeah.
When you say that.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest, we all often do.
Yeah.
So President Trump responded, and of course, what the left does is this is the I hate to use it, but the gaslighting, right? They enact policies that lead to rampant crime, that harm citizens, you, the American worker, the American taxpayer, and then when the person who you elected to office says, we need to do something about this, they go, oh, fascist. No, this person has a mandate of the masses, and a big part of that is, immigration, but tied into that, crime. Americans are tired of having to deal with crime in their cities when something can and should be done. It's one of the few legitimate jobs of the federal government, which is why President Trump has said, hey, you know what? Maybe it's time to federalize the city.
I have to say that somebody from Doge was very badly hurt last night. You saw that. A young man who was beat up by a bunch of thugs in D.C. And either they're going to straighten their act out in the terms of government and in terms of protection, or we're going to have to federalize and run it the way it's supposed to be run.
This is an important thing that many of you may have missed. During the Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown years, do you guys remember on CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNBC, MSNBC, when they had control of the left of all legacy media, they said that thug was a dog whistle?
Right.
Right. If you used the term socialist, you really meant the N-word. If you said thug, you really meant the N-word. To the point where on YouTube, they would censor some videos if you used the term thug. I had a video removed on YouTube during the Black Lives Matter protests, the riots, the early ones. Hands up, don't shoot, for referring to them as low-life thugs.
What's next? Suspect?
Yeah. No, actually, yes.
Yeah.
Actually, yes. I had a conversation with executives at YouTube who said, for example, there's a gray area. I don't think that, showing or reflecting crime statistics should be seen as prejudice, but that's not a gray area.
What? Those are stats.
So you have a president now who just said, unabashedly, thugs.
Good.
That's a shift. That's a good thing. People used to have to tiptoe around it. So please, don't underappreciate that. He added on Truth. He said, crime in Washington, D.C. is totally out of control. Local youths, quote, and gang members, some only 14, 15, and 16 years old, are randomly attacking, mugging, maiming, and shooting innocent citizens at the same time, knowing that they will be almost immediately released. They know it. Law in D.C. must be changed to prosecute these minors as adults and lock them up for a long time, starting at age 14. The most recent victim was beaten mercilessly by local thugs. If this continues, I am going to exert my powers and federalize the city. Can he do that? Actually, yeah, there are ways to do that. And you actually have more of a say in what happens in D.C. than most cities, because the city legislature doesn't really control it because of the sort of gray area that it is.
So we have the president kind of characterizing what happened.
Yes.
But just so that I understand it, because it's almost lost in this story. A woman was being carjacked.
Mm-hmm.
Big balls to the rescue.
Yep.
Right? Have all the fun you want with the jokes on that one, right? Mm-hmm. Stops the carjacking. Gets beaten up for his troubles. Mm-hmm. And the teens run off. Okay. Is the word hero being thrown around? Is the word hero saves woman from carjacking being thrown around in the media right now? Or is it basically, well, he was one of those Doge kids that has a weird nickname, and so it's just some guy that got beat up?
Yeah.
Because I for one, want more people. In fact, when 10 people try to go and attack somebody like that who's stopping a carjacking, I want 100 people from the neighborhood to make sure those 10 guys learn how to fly really quickly off of this hero.
Yep.
That's what I want. Shouldn't we be encouraging people to actually stand up and police a little bit of their own communities too? Just to a small degree. I understand there's limits, but just to a small degree.
What's the Bible verse? They will call good evil and
evil good.
Evil good.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we've reached that point. I'm waiting for everyone in D.C. to turn into a pillar of salt, because that guy's a hero, not a fat pride model activist. They'll call them brave. This guy actually risked life and limb against a gang to help someone he didn't know, but because he's of the wrong political persuasion. What were you going to say, Noodles?
I was going to say research just sent in that the carjacking victim was apparently him and his girlfriend.
Oh, his girlfriend. Okay.
Yeah. They're looking for an answer.
Either way, she's still a lady, right? She has lady parts.
Exactly.
I assumed. Big balls.
Did they
no
get the
balls.
car, or did he stop it?
I don't know if they got off with the car. It doesn't matter. He fought.
No, he did.
He fought.
I believe they did not get the car, but they won't say hero.
Okay.
And the way that the newscasters are talking, by the way, the headlines sound, it's almost as if they cut off the beginning where it said, hey, good news.
Right. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. What kind of a society do you want to live in? What kind of a country do we want? Now, the left then goes, we can't have a vigilante culture. Okay, but it's also not vigilantism to fight for what is yours and to fight for the people you love. You know what? I would rather have a culture that errs on the side of vigilantism than a culture that decides, you know what, We just have to allow crime to go on unfettered in the name of justice, in the name of equity. Everything is in the name of equity. Here's a job that you didn't earn. Equity. Hey, you know what? Here's some freedom that you rightfully should have lost after committing violent crime. Why? Equity. I get it. Some people have some tough breaks. I understand that. I also don't, you guys can comment on this. I don't agree with the idea that prison and that our justice system should just be focused on rehabilitation. I think the first thing that happens is punishment and then rehabilitation, if we can. But punishment is what is most necessary as the first deterrent. You've made your decision. So let's get to how we got here. First, let's go through the why. All references are available, links in the description. In D.C., right? Crime is terrible. We'll get you some stats. But why? Well, you can trace it to no cash bail in Washington, D.C. 88% of D.C. defendants are released. No bail being paid.
Jeez.
Just boom. Yeah, just go. And their justification is like, well, most of them show up for the court date anyway. Yeah, but some don't. And the ones who don't are likely the worst among us, right? Because they've already chosen to break the law. Also, I don't care. I don't care. There needs to be some skin in the game. There needs to be some punishment. So 88% of D.C. defendants, no bail. Then you have the policy, they refuse to prosecute crimes. Up to 67% of arrests in D.C. are not prosecuted. That is not in line with the rest of the country.
How's that even possible?
That's insane.
And of course, you've seen the gas line. Well, we didn't actually mean defund the police. Yeah, no, actually they did. And you can look at the reforms to the police in Washington, D.C. They limited police searches. They banned chokeholds completely. They removed officers just for basic allegations of misconduct in civil lawsuits. And what's the result? They have the lowest number of officers in D.C. in 50 years.
Wow.
50 years.
I'm guessing it's not a lower population.
Nope. It's not proportional. So if you're a criminal in D.C., you go, hey, there are fewer officers than ever before. They're afraid to do anything because I can just accuse them of patting me on the ass or whatever it is, and they'll be put on leave. Also, they're probably not going to prosecute my crime. And worst case scenario, I don't need to pay any cash, and I can just revolving door my criminal ass out of here and right back into mugging somebody else. At what point do you say correlation does not equal causation? So that's the why. And this is the what. This is what that's gotten you in D.C. This can be applied, by the way, to places like Detroit, to places like Chicago. D.C. is just really, really bad. If D.C., to give you an idea, if it were a state, it would have the highest homicide rate in the United States.
Jeez.
Wow. The highest in the country. In 2023, D.C. had the single highest spike of violent crime out of any cities. And that's 3 times the percentage increase of second place, a distant second place, Memphis, which also sucks.
And Memphis is really, really bad.
Memphis is terrible. And I know people, the left, they're trying to say, in the FBI, they've tried to massage these statistics, right? People try to say, well, that was because of COVID. No, actually, all crime in D.C. is still significantly higher than pre-COVID levels. Sorry, you can't keep using that crutch for this long. So other cities saw a spike. Again, who would you thank for that? Who would you thank for the spike across the country, right? COVID policy, lockdown, social distancing, shutting down businesses where you basically have major cities that are becoming ghost towns. Who was responsible for that? Who would you say is more responsible for the universal increase in crime during COVID? Would you say conservatives who didn't want lockdowns? Conservatives who wanted to keep their businesses open? Conservatives who didn't believe in writing checks to people who weren't working? Which one is more likely? And then, after COVID, where do you still see the increased crime? Is it in suburban areas? Is it in rural areas? Is it in cities that are more red? There are really almost no red cities, I think, aside from maybe Oklahoma City in the country. Where do you see the crime rate higher than it was pre-COVID? At a certain point, you have to say, okay, who is responsible for this? And let me give you some clear examples, too, in D.C. Sometimes you look at stats on a paper and you go, oh, okay, well, that happened. No, this is people's lives are being lost in record numbers. People are being beaten within an inch of their life. And it's entirely preventable. In most of these cases, almost entirely preventable. Let me walk through a couple. July 1st, remember this one? 2025, Congressional intern Eric Tarpinian Yakim, I hope I'm getting that right. He was killed, D.C., after he was caught in crossfire.
There were 2 teenage boys on bicycles just to his left, and there was an SUV with as many as 4 people inside. As that SUV made the turn here onto M Street, according to police, at least 2 gunmen, masked gunmen, got out of the vehicle, and one, with a rifle, opened fire. Eric Tarpinian Jackham was hit once in the abdomen with what appears to be a round from a rifle.
An uninvolved person who lost his life. in D.C. And so no mayor, no police chief, no mother, father, community member ever wants to hear that.
And I want to kind of walk, that was a congressional intern, right? The next one that I'm going to bring to you is someone who's a former Trump official. So when people say Donald Trump fascist, let me ask you this. If you had 1, 2, 3, 10 work colleagues and friends who were murdered or mugged, and you could do something about it, would you? Is that fascist? January 9th, 2024, this is the former Trump official Mike Gill, shot, killed in a carjacking spree.
Carjacking, didn't we just talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah, 35-year-old Alberto Vasquez Jr. was killed in that same spree, by the way. February 9th, 2023, Democratic Representative Angie Craig of Minnesota assaulted in the elevator at her apartment. July 10th, 2016, well, this one, Seth Rich, was absolutely not killed by Hillary Clinton. So I don't know why we put that in there. That was a mistake.
Sorry about that.
So think about this for a second. You have the personal experience, the personal connections, and you can look at the statistics. Okay, now D.C. has a decision to make, and they've made it. Do we do something differently? They've doubled down. So, can the federal government do anything about it? Do you want your city to be like D.C.? Do you want your city to be like Detroit, to be like Chicago, to be like St. Louis, to be like Memphis? If you vote for Democrats, that's exactly what you'll get because they've told you that.
Yeah.
Good news is you actually have a say in D.C. So, we were doing some research this morning and laying the brain. A lot of this was, I didn't know a lot of this before today. The federal government already has different levels of control over D.C., so the president can use his power regarding the D.C. police and the National Guard during emergencies, to be clear. There are things known as budget riders, and that allows Congress to basically decide to determine how D.C. spends its funds. There was one that happened with the regulating marijuana, the marijuana industry.
Well, they didn't want to. Basically, it was from, I believe it was Harris Ryder that said they basically couldn't regulate marijuana. That's probably a bad idea.
Probably was a bad idea.
City. But people don't really know this, that they have to get their budget approved by Congress.
Right.
Right. So when they want money for something or when they want to get a budget approved, they don't just do it like we normally do it in other cities around the country. They have to go to Congress.
Right.
Much more complicated process because then politics gets played with that. Pick your favorite issue, and if it comes up in D.C., they'll talk about it. So there's your power right there.
Yeah, well, here's in your city, it's usually the local city council, right? Your state determines it. Since this is your capital, are you an American? This is your capital. Nationally, you have a say. How do you want to present our capital to the world? Good news is you can do something about it, and your representatives can, if they're not cowards. Congress can overturn laws. So in 2023, the Senate overturned some new portions of the D.C. Criminal Code. So this can be done. The 1973 Home Rule Act, it actually established some levels of self-governance for Washington, D.C. So that means that to fully federalize the city, Congress has to repeal it, but they can.
Yes.
They can. It can't just be undone by a city council. This is the capital of the nation, your nation, and it's an embarrassment.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think they should have any self-governance control. There is, I mean, when you look at the crime stats, when you look at just look at the city itself, you start to wonder like, oh, okay, what are we really doing here? Tucker Carlson made this point, and I don't agree with a lot of what he's saying right now, but he's talking about other world capitals, and he's talking about Moscow specifically. And I get it. It's like a Potemkin city. Like, I understand it's not all real, right?
Right.
It's just like Gavin Newsom, whenever they had the Asian communities coming in for that conference where they completely cleaned up the entire city and got rid of all the homeless people. I understand it's kind of like that, except on a permanent basis in Moscow. But his point's not wrong in that our city doesn't look like the capital city of the greatest nation on earth. It doesn't fit right now. And we've tried it their way long enough. Because we have to change it.
Our capital city does not represent the makeup of this country.
No.
It doesn't. It represents leftist elites in power. It is the swamp. Yeah. And this is what happens when the swamp determines criminal codes. This is what happens when the swamp has that kind of control. And let me ask you, it's how you look at the world. And by the way, the best way to stay in touch, follow me on Rumble. Download the Rumble app. Follow me there. Don't be beholden to some algorithm. This would never be allowed on YouTube. I had videos removed on YouTube for reciting crime statistics. And they said some other conservatives don't. I said, well, I do. So that's why we stream exclusively live on Rumble now. Let me paint for you a scenario. And this is real because I've had this conversation with individuals, including leftists, conservatives. A mugging is in process, or a carjacking, some kind of a violent crime, okay? The man in question could be someone like Big Balls, right? has a gun. Let's say there's 5 perps. There's 5, so 10. They come up. They don't hurt him yet, but they say they're going to beat him up. Give me your car, give me your money, and blam, blam, blam. He shoots them because he's with his woman. Let me ask you this. Do you view that man as committing a sin? Or do you view that man as one committing an act of heroism? That's the difference. That's the difference in worldview. When people say, I'm not left or right, man, I'm not Republican, ask yourself that. Because if you ask a room full of Democrats, they will not say hero. They'll say, oh, it's a tragedy. I don't believe it. I don't believe that it's a tragedy. I believe that if you put someone in a situation where they could even potentially die, be maimed, or, you know what, be hurt in a way that they don't want, you forfeit your right to live.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of people are just going to say, oh, man, it's a car. No, it's a lesson.
Yep.
It's an opportunity to make sure the rest of the community knows this is not acceptable behavior.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you want a culture where you tiptoe around and acquiesce to criminals? That's what we have in D.C.
Yeah.
And not just D.C., by the way. You can look at other leftist strongholds like Memphis, St. Louis, Baltimore, Birmingham, Albuquerque, Detroit, but they're running out of people to kill. Do you want that kind of a city? Or do you want a country where criminals are afraid? They're afraid that they might get shot. They're not afraid of the cops. They're afraid of you, packing heat. And I mean that. That's not have that conversation. Have that conversation with your friends who are liberal. Paint that scenario. Man is getting mugged. Someone just asked for his car, his watch, his wallet. He's out on the town with his wife. Pulls out his gun and shoots him. Shoots 5 of them. Make it extreme. They all die. What would you say to that? If their answer is anything other than, well, I'm glad he lived. They don't view America the same way. They don't want to live in the America that you want to live in. You guys get that? There's a huge divide, and I'm not going to try and act like we find common ground on a lie. I want to see criminals blown away. If our representatives will not do what they're supposed to do, which is punish them, put them in prison, and make it as uncomfortable as possible. That's great. I hope our police force does that. I hope the authorities do that. If not, I hope that you protect yourself and your kin. And it's not even a sad story to me. It's not.
No, it's not. By the way, I have a few more details on what actually happened in this situation, right? So we had Big Balls and I guess his girlfriend or significant other. They were walking to their car. Apparently, these people, he heard a comment about they're taking the car or something like that. So he pushed his girlfriend into the car to save her and was then beaten. Right. So obviously they were going to carjack. Wow. That's still a hero's move.
Of course it is.
Local man saves his girlfriend. Like there's so many ways you can approach this in a positive light.
Yeah.
And it just makes me wonder, why? Why not? Why not approach this in a positive light?
Yeah.
Why not shine a light on somebody doing something that's selfless in this case, saving his girlfriend? You have no idea what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Assume the worst.
And by the way, that's an act of heroic masculinity. When we talk about masculinity and we talk about feminism, you look at that. Big Balls doesn't look like he's a guy who would intimidate anybody. That is an act of that man fulfilling his duties. All right, I put my life on the line. I'm the one who answers if something goes bump in the night. I'm the one who takes the bullet. He took a beating and made sure that she was safe. I don't care how much he can bench press. That's the kind of masculinity that we should and need to be encouraging. But we can't. Because if that expectation is set, then we also have to have expectations of women. Because he does that, was it Chris Rock? That means dad gets the big piece of chicken. That means that you follow his lead in that relationship. Why? Because he just took a gang beating for you. So what he says goes. Happy wife, happy life. Happy king, happy kingdom. How about that? Why? Because I got the shit kicked out of me and you got to
is that
basically
new? Is that new? Did you just make that? I haven't heard Happy Kingdom before.
I don't think so. I can't take credit for it. But it's just this whole thing. We've centered everything. This crime policy, it is the byproduct of feminism. You understand that too. Just like biological men and women's sports. 80-something% of men opposed it. 70-something% of women supported it. It's lower now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they go, oh, be nice. Oh, we're empathetic. Well, let me bring up that picture again of Big Balls. Bring up that picture. Bring up the picture of Big, or was it in the video?
I've got it. I've got an overlay.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's what your empathy gets you, feminist Democrats. There's your empathy right there on display. Now, that breaks my heart. You know what wouldn't? Every single juvenile suspect looking like that. I would feel 0 parts bad. Comment if you agree. Because it's not an equivalency. One guy who didn't deserve it, beaten within an inch of his life, that's terrible. People who mug someone, I don't care if they're in a grave. That's what that's how society always operated. Doesn't mean you go. I'm not advocating going out and Charles Bronson death wishing this thing. What I am advocating is that we all have a mind's eye on the culture that we want in this country, and that you have these conversations to understand the fundamental difference in the worldview. We understand that human beings are flawed. We understand that human beings are sinful. As a Christian, that's, for me, the only way that we can rectify this. The left views people as inherently good, and maybe they've had some tough breaks. Okay, how do you reconcile that with people who chose that day to go out and carjack innocent civilians, and when they didn't get what they wanted, beat a man within an inch of his life for doing nothing more than protecting his woman? They'll say they don't. They'll say, well, that's terrible. Yeah. Are you going to change the policies? They never do. They never do. Also, for the record, D.C. has never had a Republican mayor. There have been more mayors who have smoked crack and or allegedly killed strippers in the mayor's house than Republicans who have been mayors of D.C. So you cannot try and blame this on us.
Hey, Stephen, since we're on the topic of federalizing D.C. and talking about Congress and their powers and stuff, I started doing a deep dive into Congress this morning, and I was like, I just kept thinking about how weird looking these people are.
Sure.
And
You made another list, didn't you?
Yeah, I made a list.
All right, Josh, what's the list?
So this is this week's top 5 weirdest looking members of Congress.
Okay, all right.
At number 5, we have South Carolina Democrat and former King of Wakanda, James E. Clyburn.
Wow, that is uncanny.
Yeah.
That is uncanny.
Rest in peace.
Toolman, bring up hold on the overlay until he hits the punchline, okay?
At number 4, we have Illinois Democrat and former Notre Dame linebacker, Nikki Budzinski.
Oh, well, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
She's a real Budzinski.
It's Nikki Butkus.
Oh, jeez.
Kind of looks like Mike Birbiglia.
A little bit.
Stop.
A little bit, all right.
Number 3, Arizona Democrat and John Hammond's twin brother who fell off the table at birth, Ron Barber.
Let me see.
Who needs a barber.
That is, I think he has a barber. It's an anvil. How do you have that flat of a head?
Yeah. Was it like his first attempt at clones?
I have no idea. That's disconcerting.
It's uncanny, though.
All right, number 2, John.
At number 2, Ohio Republican whose name and head are both screaming, "It's a toupee!" Mm-hmm. Troy Balderson.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
Come on.
Was bald.
And
I had to look it up and be like, no, that's real.
That's a real name.
That's real. Just go by a stage
No,
name.
the hair's not real. The name is real. The hair is very not real.
Yes.
But,
yeah.
It was hard to choose a photo. And coming in at number 1, South Carolina Republican and lady at the party who just realized she shit her pants, Sherry Biggs.
Yeah. That's one
I have to go.
That's a nightmare.
My right eye is running away.
It would just be assumed guilty.
She could also look like the last living descendant of Medusa.
Yes, she could.
Well,
she could. She absolutely. All right.
Not turning anything to stone.
Well, we appreciate it. The impromptu. This has been Josh Made a List.
I made a list.
Oh, you're still here? And you're still watching this on YouTube? You've probably noticed something is missing by now. I'm not here. That's because the live daily show is now streaming exclusively on Rumble weekdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Tune in there, where nothing is censored.